I have always been obsessed with street food since I was a tiny child and I went to India for my family holidays. And I was always the one who wanted to eat pani puri from the guy with the little stall, a slightly dodgy looking stall with questionable water. And my aunts, who were all very sort of, portly middle class ladies, would always scold me and say, no, you can't eat from him. He's, it might not be clean, you might get ill. But it was about the flavour, and I've always been into flavour. My name's Navina Bartlett. I'm the founder and boss lady of Coconut-chilli, and I have retired from street food. Coconut-chilli started off as a street food stall, but I've now gone into manufacturing products because, quite simply, it was very hard to make money in street food, certainly in this country. I've got a marketing background, and I decided that it was going to be too difficult for me to set up my own little stall selling South Indian foods. I was doing salt marsh lamb koftas with Abu Noor pitta, which is Bristol's Middle Eastern bakery pitta bread. We were making South Indian spicy potato, homemade raitha, and it was very labour intensive. So I decided to use my marketing skills and set up the Street Food Collective in Bristol as a way of kind of supporting other vendors and trying to get street food off the ground in Bristol. I was really, really picky about the vendors who I worked with because, being a vendor myself, it was very important for me to work with other vendors who had the equal passion to what I was producing. So I was, I had to taste test everybody's food, and everybody was cooking authentic street food right in front of the customers. Outside of London, street food is a very different kettle of fish. Now, in London, it's kind of gone mainstream, and, you've got Curb, and you've got all kinds of other sort of private events that are going on, but it's kind of a trendy thing. There's a lot of footfall, and there's a lot of opportunity for vendors to do kind of, wacky food types. My problem doing things in Bristol and in Bath was that my vendors were competing amongst themselves, really, between the customers who came to the event. So I had an amazing vendor who were Peruvian. Carlos, he came over from Peru, and he was cooking authentic anticuchos, which is ox heart skewers. And they were simply fantastic. He spent a lot of time prepping in the morning, but he was directly competing with the gourmet burger truck and the pizza guy. So it was difficult for him to, to make money. The issue with street food is that councils really have to get behind it, because we started off trading on private land, and the reason for that was because there's a lot of legislation that councils get involved with. So I thought, let's go a bit guerrilla. We can use social media, and we can use our own networks and digital marketing to tell the foodies who wanted to eat the food where we were going to be. So we'd kind of rock up at different places in Bristol. We did a few events at Cabot Circus, which is a big shopping centre, and I also did a really lovely event at Arnesvale Cemetery. We had 6 vendors there, and lots of families came out, and the kids were sort of playing around and getting their faces painted and trying lots of different foods as well, which was really, really important to the vendors. So we were kind of a little bit of an underground movement for a while, but the main plan to kind of really get it off the ground was for us to have a weekly night market in Bristol. Now, I did a series of 5 Fridays at Cabot Circus on Quakers Friars, which was their kind of their very upmarket outdoor square. And Cabot Circus were good in a way because they really supported the initiative. And we were working with them almost like a kind of destination for them. But it was basically a big marketing campaign. Now, the problem with that event was we were directly competing with their retailers as well, who had put money into the marketing budget because they wanted to drive footfall into their stores. And when Cabot Circus's marketing department was saying to me, well, why can't we have the Tampopo store next to your own vendors? And I was saying, well, no, because that's a big chain. Actually, our vendors are local businesses, and the people who come to our events want to support the local businesses. Certainly, I don't want you riding on the storm that we've already created by working really, really hard. So we were kind of fighting with them, but, it was all diplomatic as well. And, push came to shove when Tampopo, on a really rainy Thursday, were going around with little voucher cards offering 25% off a main meal in their restaurant, and driving customers to go up and sit in there. And they'd put my logo on there. I was outraged. I was bloody outraged. Anyway, so we kind of, that came to a close, and I ended up getting approached by Bristol City Council because they'd heard on the grapevine and through Twitter and Facebook that we were doing really, really great things. Now, Destination Bristol was the kind of tourist championing body in Bristol. They'd kind of picked up on it as well, and they were thinking, well, we do have a little bit of a problem in central Bristol with vertical drinking culture and people getting drunk and falling about at hen-dos and things. And actually, street food would be really, really great to get lots of people from different communities together and to promote the old city area of Bristol. So I got pulled into a meeting with the head of the markets department, who wanted us to do some kind of partnership scheme. I said, yeah, that would be brilliant, because actually what we have been hankering after for the last, couple of years is to get a weekly pitch where my vendors will have the opportunity to sell people inside Bristol, but also to tourists who travel in as well. So what we did was we were told to do 3 test events, which we did very, very well, even though they were one every month. So we did one last June, last July, and last August. Now, I got 10 vendors who all sold out, or more or less sold out. We had a pop-up bar, and we had music, and people came down, and it was a great atmosphere. And then I just didn't get a follow-up meeting with them. I was pushing and pushing and pushing because they'd promised me that we could go weekly. Now, to go weekly would almost mean that it could become a sustainable business, because we really had to offset those days where it was raining or, some other kind of incident happened where the vendors didn't make money. Maybe people were on holiday in the summer holidays, or, it was too cold or whatever. With the good days where they did make money and they made a profit, and, you could kind of balance the books that way. But it was not to be, and Bristol City Council turned around and said to me, Navina, it's not really sustainable working with you. You brought people down to Corn Street, but nobody came into our market. And I said, well, that was your job, wasn't it? I brought people to Corn Street, and they had a wonderful time and ate some amazing food. And he turned around and said, but it was all foodies who came. And I said, well, that's the whole point, because people want to come and eat the street food because it's amazing. So, councils have really got to get behind street food and support these local businesses, because it's very difficult for them to start a micro business essentially without the local authorities kind of joining the dots. So street food doesn't really fit into any particular box. So vendors will often face frustrations because they've applied to the licensing department and they don't hear anything back for 9 months. And the EHO, the Environmental Health Officer, won't sign off their home premises kitchen because they don't have a separate hand washing sink. And I think councils have got to take more of a holistic approach and look at the bigger picture, because actually street food can do amazing things for cities, but it's too hard for people to try and do it off their own back if they're going to play by the rules. In California, for example, street food has it's really become sort of big business, and the municipal authority over there has actively supported organisations, collectives like I'd set up in Bristol. There's one called Off the Grid, and they have this amazing Friday night market where they've got 35 of those enormous food trucks, the big beasts. And they also sort of have a kind of incubator program where local food businesses can do kind of quite unusual food types, but they can work out of gazebos. And it's really become a kind of big tourist destination for people who come from all over the States and all over the world, actually, to try the foods from these amazing vendors. And the trucks who trade on, various street corners and things, it's basically, young chefs who want to do kind of wacky foods, fusion foods that might not go down so well in a restaurant. Certainly if you've put down £100,000 investing in a bricks and mortar restaurant, you know, you've got a lot to lose, but these guys can kind of try out new things, and customers can try out new foods as well. And often they source locally, you know, they use local producers' food. So it's all kind of supporting the local community, really. I've got an example, coming back to Bristol, of a young guy called Ben Warren who set up a just a small food cart, meat and bread, and he put his planning application into Bristol City Council. It was probably the end of July, and he didn't get anything back until sort of early January the next year. So this poor guy started trading out on the street every day in the freezing cold, where, you know, he's already, you know, up against a brick wall. Now, he did manage to kind of get it off the ground, but it just didn't work for him. And it was such a shame, because he had these really, really amazing kind of like big meaty sandwiches, and, you know, it was a shame for him. I really want councils to get behind street food, because I think it's a brilliant, brilliant way to bring people from different communities together. There's nothing better than people trying foods from different countries and finding out about people's cultures, and kids trying foods that they, you know, I had an oyster lady, and she got so excited because she'd have little kids who were sort of 4 or 5 trying oysters for the first time and getting on, you know, taking pictures and getting on Twitter and genuinely being excited about, you know, locally sourced oysters. Councils in the UK, please get together. Get your departments talking to each other. So licensing, environmental health and planning. Just get together and help these businesses to thrive rather than die. Thank you.